The Gestapo comes to the hospital and the nurse says, "Who are you looking for?" And they said, "We're looking for the Corsia baby." And she said, "There's no Corsia baby here." And they go from floor to floor to floor. They find me upstairs. They wrap me up in a blanket. I'm sure I'm crying. And they walk down and she's yelling, "Give me back my daughter."
Be Inspired podcast. Real stories from real people. Sharing stories of love and loss, struggles and perseverance, laughter and tears, and overcoming adversity.
Life is a journey that goes forward, but sometimes when we retrace the steps of our own lives, the discoveries we make can sometimes be life-altering. Hi again, I'm Bert Barron.
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
And we welcome you to Be Inspired. Lisa, I think with so many things that are happening in the world today, we could all use a little, inspiration. What do you think?
We could all use a lot of inspiration. You know, I was thinking, Bert, the last season 3, this quarantine was just beginning. We just made it by the tail end. We got together and then the quarantine began. It's something that we've never seen before in our lifetime. So I really, along with all of our guests, I feel this is so important to bring some inspiration to our guests.
Yeah, and speaking of survivorship, our first guest who's with us here today, it's Paulette Dorflaufer, who is here, and she's joined by her granddaughter, Rachel. And welcome to Be Inspired. It's great to have you both with us here today.
Thank you very much. We're happy to be here.
Something about the year 1971. Should we go back almost 50 years? Is that where you want to start the story today?
That's fine. Yes, in 1971 is when I first found out that I had family. And I was adopted by an American family, and on the Queen Elizabeth, I came over with another little girl that's when we were told that we were being adopted by an American Jewish family. And before that, my family came from Spain and Iran and Algeria, and then we went to Marseille. And my father was a waiter. We were very poor. And my mother had 10 children. And my father was taken in 1943 of January to Camp Drancy. And from Camp Drancy, he went to Ghetto Lublin. And then from there, he was taken to Camp Sobibor, where he was gassed in March of 43. And then I was born May 8th in 43.
Paulette, how many members of your family? And first of all, before we go any further, I have to just say to Bert, does she look lovely?
Thank you.
I learned something today. That is called, I said, I love your hat. You said, it's a chapeau. So there you go. I learned something because of the French name chapeau. And I think everybody should wear chapeaus every day.
I think so too.
And you have many different colors, right?
All colors
and that's
of the rainbow.
Yeah,
yes.
That's how people know you.
Yes,
by
exactly.
Your many different hats. So going back to that time, how old were you when you found out about your dad and the rest of your family?
Well, I'm not sure my age, but I think I was around 21. But the only reason that I'm here to tell the story is that I was in the hospital at a year old in Marseille. And my mother would come visit me by bus. And she was waiting for the bus, and then the convoy came, the Gestapos, and they grabbed her and they pushed her into the convoy and drove her to Les Destrues, where we lived. It was a Gentile town. Nobody had to wear Jewish stars. And my brother was taking care of the 5 children, and he heard the truck and he went in the back to town hall. And he went to Mrs. Martin, who was the secretary, who pushed him under the desk because another Gestapo was coming. And she waited for the 2 Gestapos to leave town hall. And she said to my brother, who was 15 years old, to live in the mountains for 3 days. And he ate garbage for 3 days. Now I'm in the hospital, and excuse me. And then when the convoy goes to my mother's apartment, they take the 5 children, and then they're taken to Camp Drancy, and they're on the last train to Auschwitz with the pellets for the showers. And then the Gestapo comes to the hospital, and the nurse, Miss Gloria, says, "Who are you looking for?" And they said, "We're looking for the Corsia baby." And she said, "There's no Corsia baby here." And they go from floor to floor to floor. They find me upstairs. They wrap me up in a blanket. I'm sure I'm crying. And they walk down, and she's yelling, "Give me back my daughter. This is my daughter. I'm treating my daughter." And then they go out, and she's still saying to the Gestapo, "Give me back my daughter." And the Gestapo looks at her straight in her eyes and throws me at her. She catches me. She brings me back into the hospital, and then underneath, I'm with the nuns. My family, she tells them to come to pick me up at the hospital because she was afraid about the Gestapos coming back again. And in 2015, I was in Israel at my nephew, and there was an article that my brother wrote in French, which I couldn't read. And his wife told me that it was true, that the nurse had a daughter, Paulette, and she was a year old.
That's an incredible story.
Yep.
I've never spoken to anyone who had direct involvement with the Holocaust. And you read the stories and you read the horrors. But that nurse absolutely saved your life that day. Did you ever wind up meeting her later on?
I'm sorry, I never met her.
Oh, well.
And I never knew until 2015 that she had a daughter, Paulette, and she was a year old. And the Gestapos had records on everyone, and they knew that.
That's an
That's
amazing.
the only.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Did you know you had other brothers and sisters?
Well, I found out in 1971, but my sister Fortune wanted to leave her husband, and she had a boyfriend in Marseille. And what happened was that she put my sister Jacqueline, who was older than I was, in an orphanage, Saint-Romain, in Paris by the Ozay. And I was put in the Ozay, and my orphanage was La Petite Mode. And we went there in 1945. We were in a displacement camp in Camp Frasiers for about a month. And then she put us into the orphanage. She left with her boyfriend, Michel, to go to Algiers. And that, as I said, 1945. And then in 1947, there was an attorney, Mr. Simandl, and he belonged to a Jewish orphanage, and he got pictures from the Ozay of the children to be adopted. And the Wolf family from Maplewood had a little girl, 11 years old. She was a concert pianist, and she asked her mother if she could go sleigh riding, and she said no because they lived on a hill. And she did, and then a car came, and she died on the operating table. So then they wanted another little girl, and that's when Mr. Simandl, the lawyer from Newark, had all the pictures, and he called all the people in, and everybody was picking pictures, and the Wolf family picked my picture. I was 3 years old at the time. And he said, well, wait a minute, she has an older sister, and the Wolf family said, no, we don't only want Paulette, we don't want anyone else. And they wanted me to come over right away, but I couldn't because I had impetigo on my chin. a dirt disease. And so I came over in 1948.
And Lisa, I think it's important, and I'm glad that you mentioned the fact about having her here with us today, because I think for anyone who was watching or listening, we're going to, 100 years from now, I don't know if these events in our history are going to be looked at the same, unfortunately, whether it's someone who had a direct connection to one of the darkest periods in the history of mankind, or someone who fought for our country during that period as well. Just the way history is kind of interpreted as time goes on, and we're absolutely blessed to have her here with us today. And also lucky in the sense, too, that she has documented a lot of this also. And there are some areas, some museums around the world where people can see some photographs and some of your personal recollections, right? Talk about that if you could.
Yes. I have my book. I call it a scrapbook. And I have it in Yad Vashem. And I have it in the Washington Museum in the library called Paulette's True Story. And I also have it in Paris Holocaust Museum.
And you share your story with children, don't you, Paulette?
Yes, I do twinning. And what twinning is when I twin with a child who's 12 years old. And I've done about 35 of them. And they're being bar or bat mitzvahed, and they make a poster and then they show it on Saturday. They put me into their speech, and then the rabbi gives us a certificate twinning with a Holocaust survivor, which is wonderful, and this way our stories live on.
And they live on through your descendants, as in having Rachel here with us today. Rachel, how important is for you to keep the story going and to keep the memory of your grandmother alive long after everyone in this room is gone? You still want your generation to have an appreciation for what happened in our history, right?
Definitely. I think it's very important that the children know what went on in history. And I know that my family and my cousins, we make sure to talk about it often. And we're proud that she's here.
Sure.
You two have such a great relationship.
Oh, she's the best. She's my angel.
Oh, that's so nice. And you did such a beautiful job putting together your Mima's story.
Thank you.
It says the story of Paulette.
Yes.
How did you feel putting that together, Rachel?
Well, I was very young when I first started typing the story for her, and I didn't really know anything about her past. And then when I started typing it, I was honestly shocked to know that I have an entire family in France, and I've been able to meet them over the years, which is very nice. But it's overwhelming to know that she had a completely different upbringing because of being born in France and having no family.
Right. It's the stuff you see in movies.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
Yes.
And Paulette, we are so glad that you are here to share it with us. And you have such a memory. My goodness, I can't remember what I had for dinner last night. And you remember names and events and years. And I think that's fantastic. And you just have such a joy about you. And how do you look at life? It must be such a precious gift to you, having gone through what you did.
It is precious, and I feel that everyone, that you just have to believe that each day is a better day, and pray. And I started praying because I had a disease called blepharospasm. My eyes, a car hit my car. And I was blind for 4 years. Wow. And I went to 20 doctors, and I finally found one doctor, Dr. Pfeiffer in Princeton, who was able to make the liquid called Diener, but now he's passed away. But it was made from placenta of animals, and you put a drop in your juice, and eventually my eyes open. It's your seventh nerve near the eye, and that's what makes your eyes open and close. And I couldn't open my eyes. They were like a fist. And then eventually they opened up.
All right. We will share much more of Paulette's incredible story coming up on Be Inspired.
Moving is difficult. At Loews, it doesn't have to be. For all of your residential and commercial moving needs, contact 732-775-4118 or get a free FaceTime estimate. Loews, proudly serving New Jersey for over 96 years. IgA Nephropathy Foundation of America is a patient-centric organization dedicated to finding a cure and better treatment options for IgA kidney disease. If you or someone you know was recently diagnosed or to donate, please visit IgAN.org. In this new day and age of online meetings and presentations, you need the best team at the ready. Whether broadcasting your Zoom meetings to Facebook Live or live streaming a fundraiser event, Surreal Streaming Services, with over 10 years of experience, can add confidence to your next live stream event. Call or text 646-498-8888 or visit sur-real.com. Feeling stuck with your health goals? Michelle Weber Integrated Fitness and Lifestyle Design specializes in integrating simple daily routines to get you moving towards strengthening your core and boosting immunity and resiliency. With over 15 years experience, let Michelle's team help you reach your fitness and lifestyle goals by visiting michelleweber.com or on Facebook at Michelle Weber Lifestyle.
Welcome back to Be Inspired. Our guest is Paulette Dorflaufer, along with her granddaughter Rachel, and sharing just an incredible story of surviving the heights of the European conflict in the 1940s and where her life is today. Paulette, I'm trying to put myself in the place of a young child on a boat, going somewhere, not able to communicate and speak the language. The questions in your mind just had to go on and on. I'm trying to put myself back in that moment. Take us back there, if you would.
When I was we went on the Queen Elizabeth, and the orphanage gave me a white fur rabbit coat and muff and newspaper shoes. And Mimi and I had 3 meals, beautiful meals on the Queen Elizabeth. The people were fabulous. And that's when we were told that we were going to be adopted. And when we landed, the chaperone first took Mimi to her family in South Orange, and then the chaperone stayed with us for a week because I didn't speak English and my family didn't speak French. So we went into this big Cadillac. It was like a boat, and then looking at New York because everything's small in France. And then I came to my castle house, and my parents showed me around and went upstairs, and I had clothes up there, a few little pieces of clothes that my parents bought me, because in the orphanage you wore hand-me-down and rags and shoes that were too big for you, and not enough food, of course. And then they gave me this beautiful Spanish doll, and it played music. And then after walking around, we came down into the kitchen, and my mother was patting me on my shoulder to sit down, and I didn't understand, and the chaperone told me to sit down. And then she asked what I would like to eat, and I said an apple. And the chaperone told her, and she said, an apple of all things. I don't know what she was expecting, but that was a real treat for us, an apple. And she peels it, she cuts it up, she puts it in a bowl, and I put my head down, and I'm holding on to the bowl as I'm eating. And my mother says to the chaperone, why is she holding the bowl like that and bending over? And the chaperone said, well, it's because the children would steal your food if you didn't hold on to your food. So my mother was trying to tell me, no one's going to take your food. Mm. And then I was walking with my mother in South Orange, and we're walking towards Seton Hall. And I'm holding her hand. And as we're walking, all of a sudden, these 3 nuns in black are coming toward me. And I let go of my mother's hand, and I run to the nuns, and my mother's yelling, Paulette, come back, come back. And I'm hugging their legs because they were so good to me in the hospital. And my mother told them how wonderful they were at that time.
They
So
triggered a
then-
memory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that-
then they gave me a hug.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And every time I see a nun, I have to hug a nun, no matter
isn't
where
that
I am.
Isn't that great? I have different memories of our nuns growing up in Catholic school, but they were wonderful, but they were a little stricter back then. Yeah, but how long did it take you, Paulette, to assimilate to life with your new family, and what was that like for you? Did you miss your siblings?
Well, it was, I don't remember too much, but it was difficult, but I was so happy to have beautiful clothes and loving parents. Oh, they were absolutely wonderful.
Mima, and you may want to add that they sent you to private school and they sent you to sleepaway camp.
Right, they did. They said I went to private school, and then from there I went to Echolark. And I'm still friends with one of the girls from Echolark, and her father used to call me Frenchie because I didn't speak English, but it was wonderful.
Rachel, listening to some of your Mima stories over the years, describe some of the not so good stories that you realized what she and others went through.
I think the hardest story to hear was the story when she was in the hospital and her family was taken when she was in the hospital, because I just think about what a blessing it was that she wasn't with them, because if she was, then I wouldn't be here today.
Right. That's right.
So
and some siblings were saved as well.
The siblings that weren't in the house were still alive. So the older siblings, there was older ones that were living on their own in their own apartments.
And Paulette, how was it when you reunited with your siblings and your sister, who was also brought over on the Queen Elizabeth?
No, a friend. But in 1971, I called the French. Well, what happened was when I was 21, I had to sign papers at the French embassy, and that's when I learned my last name was Corsia, and I was from Marseille. So that's when I learned that. And then in 1971, I called the French embassy, and I had my girlfriend who was French and my decorator. And I called and I asked for the name Corsia, and I spelled it Korsia. And she looks in an old phone book and she says, no, we don't have that name, but we do have Corsia, but it's spelled differently. And I said, okay, I'll take it as long as it's pronounced the same. My girlfriend calls up, and it happened to be my first cousin in Marseille. And he says, oh my God, we've been looking for you for years. And I live near your brother, and I'm going to tell him. And that's when he told me I had a brother and two sisters alive after all these years.
Wow.
Since 1971.
Paulette, let's say, for example, the events of 1971, you didn't know anything about this then.
No.
Let's say you found out about it today. Would you want to have the same passion to pursue the story and begin to kind of put the pieces back where it's another 50 years of history now you'd have to put together? Would you be able to tell the whole story if you just found out about it today?
I would, yes.
I don't think you would, because her siblings have passed.
Sure.
So she
Well, I
was
have one
able
sister.
to go and visit her siblings and learn so much from them. So now she wouldn't be able to find out the information
Right.
that she did.
Seems like the
then.
more time that passes, sometimes you never find that missing piece of the puzzle as the decades just kind of tick by, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bert, we have another aspect to Paulette, that she is well known. You are the most famous crossing guard in
Yes.
Livingston, right? Where all the
Yes.
kids know you and they ask you what color hat you're going to be wearing. Tell us about that.
Oh, well, matter of fact, the police next year is going to give me a party because I've been there for 20 years.
Wow.
So they're giving me a party. And I also work in a school in Livingston. I'm an aide there.
Very good.
She's
And-
very well known in Livingston. All of the children know
So,
her.
the elementary school, Collins School, I work for, and I work for Hillside School on the street. I'm a crossing guard there, plus Northfield for the middle school.
Boy, you are one busy lady.
Yes.
You really are.
And
You
I
have
love it.
Yeah, you have such a love for life. You could see it. The minute you walked in, you're just
Thank you.
beaming, to so happy to meet folks. And I
Thank
think
you.
that's a testament to everything that. Do you often wonder that it was a lot easier for you in the sense that you were so young when all this happened? Because I know older people who survived the Holocaust just have those memories that haunt them. And it's almost a blessing that you were 4 years old and really don't have a true recollection other than being brought over here.
Right. Well, I'm sorry that I don't remember my mother. I never met my father. And I'm sorry I don't remember the others. And I'm just so thrilled that in 72, I met my brother, who I adored, and he's passed on, and my two sisters. One passed on, and the other one, she's in Israel, but she's paralyzed now. But I saw her in 2015, and she was well then.
That's wonderful that
Yes,
you got to.
so I spent time with her a
to
little
spend
bit.
time, sure.
And her children, which were nice.
What do you tell the children that you speak to about the Holocaust, and what do you want our viewers to know about it? What's so important to you, Paulette?
Well, I think it's important that each day you try to be uplifting, you try to be happy, you try to
I think it's just important that everybody knows what happened in history so it's not repeated.
right.
For sure, a terrible, dark time
That-
in
yes.
history. And like I said, we're so happy that you are here to share. Like Bert said, this is a part of history that should be remembered.
And never forgotten. You're right.
Right,
You're
by
right.
everyone.
Paulette and Rachel, great to have you both here today. I just envision a little girl devouring a bowl of apples before anybody stole them from her. En français, it's pomme, right? Is that how you ask for an apple? I knew that high school French would come in handy, right? Pomme is an apple, right?
Oh, I don't know.
See that? You're teaching her something,
I
isn't
only
that?
know romantic words like je t'aime.
Oh,
too.
I know what that means.
See,
so
that
do
I
I.
know.
Do you see what she said to me? Je t'aime.
Yeah, who cares about
And
apples? She knows the
enchanté,
Wow.
that I know. Other than that,
That's all you need to know, the romantic words.
And thank you for joining us here today on Be Inspired. It was a real honor to have you both with us here today.
and thank you for having us. We're thrilled to be here.
I'm Bert Barron,
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
and thank you for watching Be Inspired.
Next on Be Inspired.
Alcohol to me was the liquid courage. And when I was 16 years old, I was a full-blown alcohol-dependent alcoholic. She threw her ring at me and says, "Tom, I will not marry a drunk." And I haven't had a drop since. That was one of the hardest steps I've ever had to make. I hope just one will hear my story.
Be Inspired with your hosts Bert Barron and Lisa Anderson Puleo. Directed by Rod Weber. Created and produced by Michael R. Doyle. Co-producers Bert Barron, Lisa Anderson Puleo, and Erwin Sternberg. Executive producers Rod Weber and Sean M. Sternberg. Editor Rebecca Gruber. Social media team Rebecca Gruber, John Franklin, and Luke Lograno. Filmed at New Beginnings Foundation, Wall Township, New Jersey. And thanks to our sponsors, Loewy's Moving Service, IgA Nephropathy Foundation of America, Michelle Weber Wellness, and Surreal Stream Services. Season 4 of Be Inspired is dedicated to the memory of Rob Isbicki, a guest of Season 2, who lost his life to cancer, and to his service to the community as a firefighter. Rob was a proud husband and loving father who cared deeply for his family and friends. Our prayers are with Rob's family during this time.